Hi guys, many moons ago now, Inventables reached out to me and asked me if I would like an X-Carve in exchange for my opinion on the machine, the instructions, how it works, and whatnot. Sure, their marketing had worked on me and I definitely wanted one of these machines. Probably wasn't going to pay for it myself, but I was hoping someday they would reach out to me, and they did. So here's my opinion on the 1000 by 1000 millimeter X-Carve. I'm going to break my thoughts up on this machine into 4 different parts: the purchasing and receiving experience, electrical, mechanical, software, and okay, there's 5, and how I'm thinking I'm going to use this machine in the future. So the purchasing was the same for me as it would be for any of you guys that are looking to get any rendition of this machine, whether it's the small one or the big one. Inventables website is a piece of cake to navigate, and it was very easy to follow through and make sure you had the right parts for your machine. It's laid out very, very well. You get a confirming email that has all the details in it, so it's really fantastic. After ordering my X-Carve, all the parts showed up, I think, in 3 different boxes. You got the rails in one box, the wasteboard, and then all the electronics in another box. All the parts are here for me, but I know it's not the case for everybody. Some fellow tubers that got an X-Carve as well had several parts missing that they had to reach out to Inventables to get, and they were very quick to get those parts. So I know Inventables is on the ball when it comes to their customer service. It's excellent. When you're building this machine, make sure you have lots of room to lay out all the parts. And if you're building the big one, make sure you have enough room to put this machine together without anything in your way. So you need this plus a lot of extra room for all of your parts. And I do gotta say, whoever packs all those bags at Inventables, you're amazing. Zach, that person needs a raise immediately. I was losing my mind taking things out of the bag. I can't imagine putting all those parts in the bag. Needless to say, it was meticulously organized and very easy to find all your parts. Now, the instructions for putting this together are also very thoroughly done. They are for the 500 millimeter X-Carve, not the 1000, so there's some interpolation that you have to do to make sure you have the parts correct. I did run into several pictures that had a piece upside down here or there, but then going forward to different pictures, I was able to figure out that it probably does need to be this way, and everything went together for me pretty well. It took me about 10 hours to do it, and that was over several days and in and out with the kids. There were a few times in the instructions, like I said, where a piece was upside down here or there, and jumping to the video would really help me get through that section. So don't discount them, even though it does take some time to watch them. I would usually skip through to the meat of the video, and it would help me with the part that I was confused with. One part of the instructions that's mentioned in passing, but I think should be a step that needs to be done, is adding the heat shrink to the belts. I put the first belt on without putting the heat shrink on, and before I was even finished with it, I went back and added the heat shrink just because I couldn't hold it together before getting to the other side to tighten the belt down. So I definitely think that's a step that should be added for everybody to do. That'll save you time in the long run, and you'll be thankful. Now, moving on to the electrical portion of the assembly of this thing. First of all, in my opinion, for the couple cents it would cost, it would be nice to have a little bit longer wires so you have more options of where to put the power supply. Right now you're kind of constricted to about 2 feet away from the corner of the X-Carve. Another complaint is the neutral, where you take all your limit switches and a couple other parts back to. You have to put like 6 wires into one tiny little terminal, and it just doesn't fit. So I soldered the wires onto another wire, which gave me a little more room to get everything together. Another problem I saw all over the forum and had myself was not enough current to the Y-axis motor, so you had to change the setting on the potentiometer. Why this wasn't in the instructions, I don't know. The limit switches on this machine are good for bringing your machine back to home. Now, it doesn't even bring it all the way back to home, so I think the printing on the wasteboard needs to be adjusted a little bit. And then it would be really nice if, when you are adjusting the axes on Easel, if you hit the button too many times by accident or have the increments too big, if when it hits the E-stop, it actually stops the motion. Now, being a stepper motor, deadheading into a plate is not going to hurt anything, but it's going to break these limit switches. They're not expensive to replace, so that's fine, but it would just be nice if that actually stopped the motion. Another accessory that would be kind of nice on a machine like this is an E-stop. Right now you have the software stop on Easel or any other software that you're using. There's been a couple times where I had the piece in the wrong spot when I started cutting, and I needed to stop it right away. And the first thing I did was just yank the power cord, because that's the closest thing I could get my hands on. but it would be nice if there's a big red button that you could hit. That's included in the base electronics. It's definitely something you can add, and it's probably something I will add. And I'll also probably run those limit switches through so it actually stops things. Now this complaint has since been addressed by Inventables, and I probably should have just ordered a different spindle from the get-go. But the 24-volt spindle that came with this machine is pretty much a joke. Inventables has switched suppliers of their spindle, so now you actually have a trim router that comes as the stock spindle on all of the X-Carve. So I have since picked up a Makita router. I chose this route because it's a little bit lighter than the DeWalt, which is now the standard spindle. There is no spindle mount accessory that Inventables sells for this Makita. Would be nice if they did. I know a bunch of guys on the forums are using this spindle. I'm going to make the plate out of aluminum, and then I'm going to make the spindle brackets out of this piece of hickory I have here. And then once I have that in place, I might actually try to make the brackets out of aluminum using the new Makita spindle. But that's another video for another day. Now, the actual machine and the space it uses for the 1000mm is big. I think this was a little over 42 by 42 inches, and you need a minimum of 13. So I wanted a folding table, which takes care of this big horizontal space, but you need to make sure you're offset from the wall enough that your spindle doesn't slam into the wall. So that was about 13 plus, so 13, 14 inches to be able to rotate that up against the wall. So it does stick out quite a bit and still uses a decent footprint in your shop. Because it's so big, it's a little bit wobbly, I guess, and we'll see with the bigger spindle on if that's a problem or not. There's a lot of guys on the forums that have stuck with the stock configuration and are having incredible results as is. So moving on to the software portion of my thoughts. Easel's great. It's very simple to use, very intuitive, very quick to get the hang of. Most anyone can probably do it, but it's also limited. There are some things that have since been fixed since I started using Easel. One of them was tab placement. For some reason, before some of the latest updates, Easel had the worst possible location to put a tab. It was always in a tight corner or someplace you just couldn't get a chisel into without damaging the rest of your work. They've since fixed that so you can move the tabs around. They're interactive. Using those interactive properties, you can move the tabs around to reduce the number as well. And they're going to update later on where you can actually select the amount of tabs that you want in there so you don't have to move them all around. When you get your machine, it does not have a Z-axis knob like this to move the Z-axis up and down. You're restricted to using the belt or your fingers to spin that knob or the software to move it up and down. Inventables does have an option you can buy. It only took me a couple minutes to make this knob, and I'll have a SVG file in the description if any of you guys are interested in that. But that would be something super easy that Inventables could just include in the main package and save you some time later on. Easel at the moment does not allow you to change the bits mid-project on your X-Carve. Now there is an early access to Easel that does allow you two different bits, a roughing pass and a detailed pass, and it's actually two different sets of G-code, but it uses the same homing, I think, or you can just use the last known home position. That's great. But it would be really nice to be able to rehome the Z-axis. I don't know if Inventables is coming out with something that would allow you that in the future. Right now you have to do it by eye and using the knob, but it would be really nice to only reset the Z-axis, not the X and Y. So you can bring the machine back to the last known position. It goes back to the last known position after one of your roughing passes, let's say. And then if you could only reset the Z-axis. Now, what am I going to use this for in my shop? When I saw all the other YouTubers getting them, I was super excited and wanted one so bad. Tons of things running through my mind that I could do on this. I got it, super awesome. I've used it for a bunch of things so far. Carved out some crosses with Jonathan Conrad. A bunch of you guys probably know him. He comments on everybody's videos. Great guy. Cut out some letters for his sons. I want to carve out some puzzles, some inlays, some carving, some signs. I made a hair storage organizer for my sister, and it does a great job for stuff like that. I'm a little skeptical about the accuracy so far. I need to play around with it a little more, maybe adjust my belts a little bit, but it does seem to not be as accurate as I was hoping. Now, it is slow. I wasn't prepared for how slow it would actually be when carving material. Again, the upgraded spindle will probably help that, but I guess I was a little bit disappointed about just how long it took. So I have had it working over here while I was working on other things in the shop. That's what a CNC should do. It should cut things out accurately while you're building other things in your shop, just making your workflow that much faster. but it's still pretty doggone slow. And there's a lot of times I can cut something out on the bandsaw and chew it up much quicker than the X-Carve can cut it out in that same time frame. So small things on the X-Carve are great, but if you need to cut out something big, it just takes an awfully long time. Again, the upgraded spindle and the dual bits in Easel will probably really help that situation, and I'll find that out on future projects. So should you buy an X-Carve? It has its pros and cons, which hopefully I've laid out very well in this video for you. I still am excited to have it. It opens up a new range of projects that I can do in my shop, and even though it's a little bit slow, it'll just do them better than I could do by hand. So there's definitely a place for the CNC machine. How much I'll actually use it in my projects remains to be seen, and hopefully you guys are back to watch and see if I use it. I hope this review was helpful. I'm DIYTyler. You guys have a good one.